When I first picked up the latest volume of Thor titled Thor number 6 over from Marvel Comics, I thoroughly enjoyed the climactic battle between Thor and Galactus up to that point. However, I was thrown for a loop when Marvel showed a vision of Thor's future, showing how he died. And it seemed like Marvel was about to tease a big upcoming event. However, it's been a long time since that issue came out, and we haven't heard anything about the premonition of Thanos returning to wage a war against Asgard and Thor specifically. But today, Marvel just released a brand new one shot teasing where Thanos is and what he could potentially be up to in future stories called Thanos Death Notes. My name is Arakko Braddock, and today, let's go ahead and dive deep into Thanos Death Notes to see if this one shot is able to tell an intriguing story about where we can expect to find Thanos in the very near future, or if this is another just redundant anthology collection over from the House of Ideas. But before we get started, wanted to go ahead and encourage you to consider subscribing to the channel and hitting that like button if you enjoy our content. Without further ado, I want to provide some context behind this brand new Thanos one-shot by reading Marvel's solicitation text for the issue. Thanos is missing, presumed dead, after the chilling events of Kieran Gillen and Assad Ribick's Eternals. But Thor has seen a vision of his return, and it is enough to make even a god fear. To prepare himself to prepare the universe, Thor desperately searches for answers in Thanos' past and finds a glimpse of the Marvel Universe's dark future. And very first thing I want to do here is show off the wonderful cover from Andrea Sorrentino and Matthew Wilson for Thanos Death Notes #1. Here is a look at the issue, and I want to give big thanks to Adventures in Poor Taste for providing this preview of the issue so incredibly fast. And next up, I want to go ahead and start off by explaining that this is an anthology story. So I want to go ahead and tackle this story by story. Let's go ahead and take a look at the first story here in this collection. This is actually the framing sequence and the main story for Thanos Death Notes. And this story is called, give me 1 second here, Dead by Rumor, written by Torunn Gronbekk. Art here from Andrea DI Vito. Colors from David Curiel, and letters from VC's Travis Lanham. I have to say here, I really enjoy Torunn Gronbekk's writing, and I think maybe Gronbekk at this point is an underappreciated writer over at Marvel. I've seen really great things from Gronbekk over in kind of the Jane Foster Valkyrie title, as well as some other Thor titles that have also been written by Gronbekk. And I think this issue shows why Gronbekk is just so great as a writer. There's so many nuanced pieces of information here, and the tone, the setting is just right. I like a lot of the dialogue here. You can get kind of a look at Thor sharing a really ominous couple of turns of phrases with the crows amid him. I love how this story is paced. It's kind of interspersed with a couple other stories that you're going to read later on down the line. But this one had so many interesting things about it. And I love how it tied back the really old issue of Thor that happened so early in the run. And Gronbekk right now is writing the main Thor series. So it looks like Gronbekk just kind of laid down a couple plot threads that they're planning on paying off in the main Thor series, coming a little bit later on down the line. But the way that this is paced, written, and even drawn over from Andrea DI Vito is just gorgeous. I think the movement is so fluid, and there's so much detail on all these individual pages throughout the issue. I love kind of the retelling of the classic sequence, showing Thanos mounting the insane, war against Thor over in Thor #6. So I think, just from a continuity aspect, there are so many intriguing points of interest throughout this issue. if you told me this framing sequence was written by Al Ewing, who is so great at unearthing Marvel lore, I wouldn't be surprised. So this not only has me excited about where the Marvel Universe is heading for this Thanos event, but also has me realizing that, maybe I need to check out Thor if this story is really that good. So even though this next story called All That is not as connected as this main one, it still tells a really chilling, basically story between a Thanos robot and Tony Stark that is just intriguing and fascinating. So great to see the author of this story, Christopher Cantwell, to be able to return to Iron Man. I think it's a really great POV character, point of view character, for anchoring kind of stories within the Marvel Universe. I love the moral conundrum that Cantwell places to Iron Man, where he has to kind of argue through it with Thanos. I think the characterization in this is so good. The art from Travel Foreman is a perfect match for Cantwell because it's just so dark and kind of psychologically torturous throughout the issue. There's something a little kind of, I would say, raw and exposed about this that makes it really kind of wonderful. Tony's older suit, I think, makes him look more vulnerable than he would have otherwise. So I think Cantwell and Foreman have both done such a incredible job making sure that the tone of this issue is just right, because it would have been really easy to squander in the hands of a different creative team. And also, I think when we have two creators that are working together with such a unique vibe so incredibly well, I always like to take the time to kind of spotlight them. I think the level of violence that we get from Foreman is absolutely horrific as well. This was a really special story in the collection from me and got some really advanced characterization, in my opinion. And the next story in our collection is also incredibly exciting for me. This one is called Love and Death and Much in Between. And this story features the return of a wonderful Thor writer, J. Michael Straczynski, to the Marvel Universe. Straczynski is working on this story with artist Jeff Shaw and color artists Dean White and Ruth Redmond. The letters in this one are from VC's Travis Lanham. So the reason why I like this issue so much is because it told an interesting story between Thanos and Death and highlighted a different part of Thanos than what we typically see. We get to look at a more vulnerable version of this character. I really enjoy the way Straczynski writes dialogue, and I wish Straczynski's Thor run would have gone on much, much longer than it did, along with artist Olivier Coipel back in the day. But the level of characterization here shows just exactly what Straczynski brings to the Thor property. Again, this dialogue is just so incredibly well written. I love Jeff Shaw as an artist. I think Shaw really shines in this material. Straczynski writes really complicated emotions in his scripts, and Shaw is able to depict, the content on the page with that sense of subtlety that you would want to see from a creator tackling somebody like Thanos. So I'm incredibly happy with this story in the collection. It's got a nice little ending and gives Thanos a little bit more characterization. But at the end of the day, I think you're still going to remember he's a villain. The last story in this collection is called The Bar at the End of the Line. This one is written by Kyle Starks, features pencils from Ron Lim, inks from Don Ho, colors from Israel Silva, and letters from VC's Travis Lanham. Out of all the stories in the collection, this one stands out quite a bit because it is more focused on telling a more silly story for Thanos compared to every other story in the collection coming off a lot more kind of dour and serious and dark. However, I just didn't understand the place that this story had in the collection. It was such a big tonal shift from the other tales in the story. It's great to see Ron Lim returning to draw Thanos, and I do like the kind of more classic, streamlined way that he draws this character, but this story within the collection stood out like a kind of massive sore thumb. It's much harder to see the connective tissue between Thor, Thanos in like future issues of the run. Also, I just think that even though there were some kind of really nice and charming moments, I don't see how this really brings like the Thor or the Thanos franchise as a whole forward in general. There is some fun to be had here from Kyle Starks and Ron Lim. And if you're going into this story maybe with the expectations lowered a little bit, I think you might have a little bit more fun than me with this tale. Also, I just appreciate the pacing of this story because, you know, as soon as that tale is done, then we pick right back up with the main, you know, framing sequence from Torunn, Gronbekk, and Andrea DI Vito. So I just think this issue is paced absolutely incredibly well. Overall here, I think Marvel did a fantastic job with this Thanos Death Notes collection. There's a lot of really fun, really interesting stories in here. Plus, I feel like this was not a waste of time because this could potentially be setting up a massive event with Thanos down the line. Definitely, it seems like some of these plot threads are going to be followed up in the next issue of Thor, since you know, that series is also written by Torunn Gronbekk. And overall, I just think this is a really solid collection from Marvel. I think Marvel has done a really good job, you know, telling solo stories with Thanos over the years, because I think he's just such an intriguing character. And, you know, starting with a character who has such bad intentions can be really interesting to read through, so long as you have some interesting concept to stick with this character. So I want to know, did you guys enjoy Thanos Death Notes as much as I did? Let me know down in the comments below. Thank you so much for checking out the video, and we'll be back very soon with more excellent comic book content. Bye.